8 reasons why the United States will never go to war against China for islands in the South China Sea. Let's set aside emotions. Let's use rationality, reason, logic, common sense, along with a fundamental understanding of international relations and political economy to know the truth about China, the United States, and the Philippines and the South China Sea. Please understand the context of these issues according to the global perspective rather than a one-track mind or a narrow nationalistic fervor. Do not use the experiences of the Second World War as a basis for the United States to defend the Philippines. Americans won't go to war just because the Philippine government uses sovereignty as a basis of their ignorance. We are now in the 21st century. This is the year 2015. With all due respect and all the love in the world to the veterans of the Second World War, we can't use a World War II mind frame to understand the dynamics of the South China Sea. Despite what most idiot Aquino followers in the Philippine government and military are saying, if the Philippine military initiated an attack on any Chinese installation in the South China Sea, no American soldier will die needlessly if American diplomats and government officials can stop a full-blown war. So here are 8 reasons why there will never be a war between the United States and China in the South China Sea. Reason number 1, the United States helped open the Chinese economy right after Nixon met Mao in 1972. The American strategy was to help the Chinese develop its economy. This way, China won't be just another communist country fighting Americans. China slowly became an American ally. From that time through the 1980s and 1990s, a lot of American manufacturers transferred their operations to China because of lower labor costs. As the biggest economy in human history, the American business strategy was aimed at lowering manufacturing costs to drive consumption in the United States, virtually making China an American satellite for production. Reason number 2. In 2000, the U.S. Congress granted China with a permanent most favored nation status. A vast majority of goods sold in stores like Walmart, Target, Dollar Store, Costco, Best Buy, Amazon, and Macy's come from China. Over the past 15 years, virtually every product that an American buys for New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, spring break, summer vacation, St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and during most, if not all, birthdays, 300 million Americans have spent somewhere between $35 billion to $45 billion every month to buy products from China. That amounts to $420 billion to $540 billion of American purchases from China. This is where reason number 3 comes in. Today, Sino-American trade is not a balanced or normal trade. The United States runs a trade deficit with China because the Chinese only buys about $130 billion worth of American goods. China sells more products to the United States, which means Americans manufacture less and sell less to China, creating a perennial trade deficit. If you think Americans are getting the raw deal from China with this trade deficit, you're mistaken. China's investments in the United States involve the purchase of billions of dollars worth of houses, real estate property, land, businesses, along with expenses of thousands of Chinese tourists and Chinese students who study here in the United States every year. The Sino trade deficit does not even take into consideration the tens of billions of dollars in taxes coming from thousands of Chinese-owned businesses and restaurants all over the 50 states. In other words, the trade deficit is misleading if taken at its face value. Reason number 4, China owns $1.22 trillion of American debt. With this debt from China, the United States practically makes China part owner of the United States because both nations desire unbridled wealth and unrestricted economic development. At present, the United States and China are the 2 biggest economies in the world respectively. There are no signs these 2 mega economies are slowing down. And if these 2 economies control the global economy, there's no reason for them to go to war against each other. Reason number 5, mutual security. Both the United States and China are permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, which means none of them can be taken out of the UN Security Council, even if the other nations wanted to. Along with 3 other permanent members of the UN Security Council, France, Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, these countries control the most powerful militaries in the world. Each nation of the UN Security Council has veto power, or the ability to deny any action or participation in any military endeavor of the whole UN Security Council. Ever since Nixon met Mao in 1972, the US and China have been exchanging military liaisons and expanded these to, quote, dialogue and consultation mechanisms, such as the Military Maritime Consultative Agreement, the Defense Consultative Talks, and the Defense Policy Coordination Talks. In recent months, according to the 2015 annual report to Congress by the United States Department of Defense, U.S. Navy, Army, and Air Force officials have visited China. The Chinese military reciprocated by sending observers to American military bases in San Diego and Alaska, in sending representatives to conferences in Washington, D.C. Because of these close military ties, Chinese and American military forces are highly unlikely to go to war. Reason number 6, the United States Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C. does not have anything on any war, conflict, hostilities, and or threats in China. I know it sounds like a non sequitur argument because anyone from the think tank can always change their minds and do research on China. However, it defeats the purpose of studying peace between China and the United States when the same people who will do the study and research at the United States Institute of Peace use or wear China-made products, have Chinese friends, and order Chinese food takeout. I mean, really? Then you have hundreds, if not thousands, of colleges and universities all over the United States setting up programs, courses, and majors on China studies, and one understands the genuine affinity between Chinese and Americans. Reason number 7. Companies like Microsoft, Nike, Reebok, and Adidas, among many others, hardly lifted a finger against Chinese manufacturers who pirated their products in the 1990s and early 2000s. These companies did not really ignore the problem of piracy. After all, they lost tens of billions of dollars in profit to Chinese knockoffs, not to mention the fact that the United States government spent hundreds of millions of dollars going after manufacturers of pirated goods. However, these losses, amounting to tens of billions of dollars, were ignored because of the long-term benefits of the United States, democracy, and capitalism. With the manufacture of pirated products, the Chinese were immersed in the American culture, represented by the likes of Microsoft, Nike, Reebok, and Adidas, to name a few, and eventually took part in free market capitalism. The wealth obtained by the Chinese making and selling pirated products only led them to seek legitimacy so that they may earn more money selling officially licensed goods. Reason number 8, China is an economic and military ally of the United States. The two countries are not exactly best of friends, but their economic growth and military interests have made them allies against Russian aggression ever since the end of the Cold War. The American government knows that it is more powerful with China on its side, along with France, United Kingdom, and of course Russia on the opposing end. These are the 8 reasons why the United States will never go to war against China in the South China Sea. Of course, these reasons are moot and academic if some dumbass suddenly launches a missile. The next video gives us the reasons why China needs the South China Sea.